fantasy, fantasy, madmen, fantasy, fantasy, madmen, fantasy, fantasy, madmen, fantasy football infotainment, fantasy, fantasy, madmen, fantasy, fantasy, madmen, fantasy, fantasy, madmen, fantasy football infotainment. Fantasy football infotainment. Fantasy Madmen.
This week, the Fantasy Madmen would like to salute our troops at home and overseas for fighting for our freedom.
So we can play fantasy football.
Thank you. My name is Chris Hios.
I'm Magisha Ferruzzi.
And we are the Fantasy Madmen. Week 10 is in the books.
It's a wrap, people.
Let's get right into it with the weekly rundown.
So who's your star of the week, Chris?
My star of the week is Pierre Thomas, running back for the New Orleans Saints. Had 111 yards, 1 rush touchdown, 1 receiving touchdown. The Saints' offense was cruising on Sunday night against Dallas. Thomas had a monster fantasy performance in a crowded backfield.
Jackpot. Chicka, jackpot.
Now, who's your star of the week?
My star of the week is Ryan, the pride of Harvard, Fitzpatrick.
The bearded cannon.
Well, that cannon went off for 264 yards and 2 touchdowns. He even ran one in. Now, things didn't work out in Buffalo, but it feels like Fitzpatrick has turned the corner in Tennessee. Now, management isn't happy with Jake Locker because of his inability to stay healthy. And Fitzpatrick, if he keeps up this level of production, Locker, you better watch your back. Now, who impressed you this week, Chris?
Tavon Austin,
Ooh.
wide receiver for the St. Louis Rams. 2 catches, 138 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a punt return for a touchdown. Can you say big playability?
Big playability.
He averaged 69 yards and a touchdown per catch this weekend. He was electric against the Colts on Sunday. Jeff Fisher, get this man the ball.
Get him the ball, bro. Get him the ball. Get him the ball.
Who else impressed you?
I'm going to go with Mark Ingram, running back, New Orleans. This man rushed for 145 yards and a touchdown. Finally, will the real Mark Ingram please stand up? Now, after having 13 100-yard rushing games in college, he finally had his first one in the pros. It took him 3 years to do it, but late's better than never. Now, sadly, it was against the super soft Dallas Cowboys. Super soft Dallas Cowboys defense. Soft like Charmin. Soft as a baby's bottom. So don't expect that production every week. Now, who disappointed you?
Speaking of the super soft Cowboys, Tony Romo, Jason Garrett, and the entire Cowboys passing game. They had 128 yards and a touchdown. He went into this weekend as a top 5 fantasy quarterback, but sure didn't produce like one.
No.
Down by 2 touchdowns at the half, they were still shut out in the fourth quarter. They couldn't even get some garbage time points to pad some fantasy stats.
So disappointing.
Now, who disappointed you?
The entire Dallas Cowboys defense. You allow an NFL record 40 first downs? 40. You gave up 240 rushing yards to the New Orleans Saints. That's the most they've rushed in 23 years. Come on, man. Your inability to get off the field is what ensured that the offense couldn't get any plays.
Disappointing.
Hey, Jerry Jones, how about them Cowboys? And that's our weekly rundown.
For week 10.
Tell them why you're mad, son. Tell them why you're mad. What you mad at? Now, this is a segment where we look back at the week that just passed and tell you what we're mad at. So what are you mad at in week 10, Chris?
James Ahedebo of the Baltimore Ravens. Knock the frickin' pass down. Knock it down. It's football, not volleyball. Wake up, man.
Wake up.
Now, I'm going into Monday night 20 points down because you literally handed A.J. Green a 51-yard touchdown at the end of regulation. That's what I'm mad at.
Tell him why you mad, son.
Why you mad?
I'm mad at the fact that I'm in 5th place in the Fantasy Madmen League and that Chris is in 3rd. Huh? This has to be the worst fantasy season I've ever had. I can't believe after being first all season, you have 3 bad weeks and it puts me below you. This has to be the lowest point of my whole fantasy career. Me being ranked lower than you is like North Korea and South Korea having a picnic.
사상과 영도 동망은 물론
It ain't gonna happen. And that's what I'm mad at.
I ain't mad at that.
I bet you ain't. Yo, tell them why you mad, son. Tell them why you mad.
Now these are the Fantasy Madmen rapid fire waiver wire pickups for Week 11.
Rapid fire.
Well, I'm going to start it off with Jericho Cotry, wide receiver, Pittsburgh. He had 3 catches, 31 yards, and a touchdown. That's 4 touchdowns in 2 weeks. Big red zone target. If you ain't got him, get him.
I'm going to go with Mark Ingram, running back for the New Orleans Saints. Healthy and productive running backs are hard to come by, and the entire Saints offense is racking up fantasy points every week.
If you ain't got him, get him. I'm going to go with Andre Roberts, Arizona wide receiver. 5 catches, 72 yards, 1 touchdown. Played as a result of the shoulder injury to Malcolm Floyd. If Floyd is a no-go, it's jackpot time for Mr. Roberts. If you ain't got him, get him.
I'm going to go with Nate Burleson, wide receiver for the Detroit Lions. He looks to return in Week 11 and should see a ton of targets with Megatron drawing double coverage.
If you ain't got him, get him. Well, I'm going to go lastly with Benny Cunningham, St. Louis Rams running back. He had a total 100 yards from scrimmage. With Zach Stacy nursing hurt ankles, expect Cunningham snaps to increase. If you ain't got him, then you better get him.
Those are the Fantasy Madmen rapid fire waiver wire pickups for Week 11.
Sneaky, sneaky, sneaky.
Now these are the Fantasy Madmen
Sneaky, sneaky, sneaky.
starts for Week 11. I'm going to start off with Case Keenum, quarterback for the Houston Texans, going against Oakland. He had 2 real solid performances in a row and should have a third at home versus the Raiders. Start him.
Well, I'm going to go with Percy Harvin, wide receiver, Seattle versus Minnesota.
Really? In his first game back?
There is nothing a professional athlete likes more than sticking it to his old team.
Start him. I'm going to go with DeAndre Hopkins, wide receiver for Houston, going against Oakland. He had 6 catches last week, and Oakland has given up a ton of points to receivers. Start him, or you'll be sorry. So start him.
I'm going to go with T.Y. Hilton, wide receiver, Indianapolis versus Tennessee.
Hotel Motel T.Y. Hilton.
Hotel Motel T.Y. Hilton? I can't believe I'm saying this, but Jacksonville had its way with Tennessee's secondary. So I can't wait to see what the Colts can do. Great bounce back game.
Have I ever steered you wrong?
What about last week?
Forget about last week and start him.
No, but really, what about last week?
Start him. Those are the Fantasy Madmen.
Sneaky, sneaky, sneaky.
Starts for Week 11.
Now, this segment where we take a look back at the week that just passed and try to figure out what we learned. So what did you learn in Week 10, Chris?
I learned that the 2013 NFC East is terrible.
Terrible?
Terrible. Possibly the worst conference in NFL history. The Giants lost their first 6 games and are still in contention to win the division. The only bright side for fantasy owners is that they play each other twice a year.
True.
Start off fantasy players going against NFC East teams. Cowboys are the worst defense in the league.
Worst.
Followed by the 31st ranked Eagles.
Second worst.
Followed by the 27th ranked Redskins.
5th worst.
Followed by the 12th ranked Giants. Now, what'd you learn this week?
Well, I've learned that bye weeks are causing fantasy GMs to drop quality players so that they can fill empty spots. Now, you must look at waiver wires every day, sometimes twice a day.
Maybe 3 times.
Maybe 3. You never know what gem might just fall into your hands. This week, I was able to grab Darren Sproles and Chris Ivory. I know. I can't believe it either. But that's why you must hit the waiver wire every single day.
And save your waiver wire claims for moments just like that.
And that's what we learned in Week 10. Break it down now.
Fantasy.
Madmen.
Fantasy.
Madmen.
Fantasy.
Madman.
Fantasy.
Madman. Check us out.
Ever.
Every week, Fantasy Madman.
Fantasy, Madmen, Fantasy, Madmen, Fantasy, Madmen, Fantasy, Madmen, Madmen.
Tune in next week.
That's not deuces, that's deuces, strays. There's no king size.
Yeah.
Fantasy.
Madmen.
Book it.